In this video, we want to explain what a virus is.
It's a video for the parents to show to their kids or watch themselves and then reinterpret for their kids.
It's really for anyone who wants a simple explanation of what a virus is. To understand what a virus is, you need to understand what a cell is.
You may have heard of cells before. Every living thing is made of cells and they are tiny. You are made of trillions of cells and that's how small they are.
If you wanted to see a cell, you'd have to look into a microscope. When you put a microscope on your skin and see through it, you'll see these tiny little blobs, and these blobs are your cells.
Because you are a child, you are growing very slowly. You are getting bigger and bigger and bigger as time goes on. I'm not growing anymore because I'm an adult.
I'm as big as I'm gonna get. The way you grow is by the number of cells in your body going up. So the more cells you have, the bigger you become. And the way you get more cells is that the cells inside your body get a little bit bigger until they split in two. So if you look under a microscope, you might catch that happening.
You will notice one of the cells getting bigger and bigger until it splits into two cells. So now you have more cells than you did before, and that's happening all through your body as you grow.
Even though I'm not growing, it's still happening in my body as well. Because sometimes cells die and they need to be replaced by new cells. So cells are growing and splitting into two in my body as well. How are cells able to do this?
Well, you can think of a cell a bit like a factory full of machines, but they are not like machines you have ever seen before. They are these weird, knobbly things and they are just kind of floating around in there, but bumping into each other.
When they bump into each other, they change shapes. It's a strange place inside a cell.
But just like a normal factory, a cell brings in raw material and turns those raw materials into products, things that your body needs to function.
And we call those raw materials nutrients. You get nutrients from the food that you eat. As one of your cells get bigger and it's ready to split into two, this factory inside does something amazing.
It builds a copy of itself so that there's two of every single machine that makes up the factory.
And when it splits into two, one copy of the machine is inside one cell and another copy is in the other.
Isn't that amazing? It's a bit like you buying a 3D printer and then using it to print another 3D printer. That's what your cells do all the time when they grow and divide.
How do these machines inside your cells know what to make and when to make them?
Well, inside every single one of your cells is something a bit like an instruction manual. You might have heard of it. It's called DNA. But DNA is not like any instruction manual you have ever seen before.
Imagine taking an instruction manual, taking all the sentences inside that manual and putting them in a one huge long chain. So you got this huge chain of letters and words. Except for DNA, those letters are actually clumps of atoms.
So DNA tells the machines inside the factories inside your cells what to make and when. So that's everything we need to know about cells.
Let's talk about viruses. Viruses are even smaller themselves. To see just how small the virus is compared to the size of your cell, imagine this is one of your cells.
Well, then a virus would be just that big. In fact, at this scale, if you look closely, you'd be able to see the individual atoms that the virus was made of.
Let's have a look inside one. This is coronavirus, and when you look inside, there's this curly whirly thing, and that is the instruction manual for the virus. So a bit like we've got DNA in our cells, that's the instruction manual for our cells, viruses have this instruction manual too.
The instruction manual for coronavirus has a slightly different structure to DNA. So we call it RNA, but it's the same idea.
You'll notice that it's very cramped inside the virus. There's not much room for anything really.
There's definitely no room for any machines like there are inside cells. So there's no factory inside a virus.
A virus doesn't have what it needs to make copies of itself because there's just no room.
The only way for a virus to make copies of itself is to get inside your body and use the machinery inside your cells to make copies. So how does that happen?
Well, suppose someone who is suffering from coronavirus coughs. So they allow these tiny droplets of water into the air And these droplets of water have coronavirus particles in them.
So, if you were to breathe in some of these droplets, they would end up in your mouth and in your throat.
Catching coronavirus in this way by breathing in someone's cough, we think, only really happens when you're right up close to someone.
Which is why we are doing this social distancing thing. So, it's not something to be scared of so long as you are keeping your distance.
Actually, the most common way to get coronavirus, scientists think, is by someone with the infection coughing and then those droplets landing on surfaces.
Or maybe they cough into their hands and touch surfaces like door handles. And then when you touch the door handle that's got the virus on it, the virus goes onto your hands.
And then maybe you touch your mouth or you pick up some food and eat it, which is why everyone's telling you to wash your hands.
It's really important to wash your hands often and to do it really well.
But in any case, whatever way it happens, if the virus gets into your airways, then it's going to start bumping into the cells that line your airways.
And if you look at the outside of a virus, you will notice all these funny sticky out bits that have been colored in purple in this picture.
These knobbly bits are good at sticking to certain types of cell. In the case of coronavirus, these knobbly bits on the outside are good at sticking to the types of cell that line our airways.
And when a virus sticks to a cell, it then merges with the cell.
So now this curly-whirly instruction manual for the virus is inside one of your cells.
So maybe you can guess what happens next. Inside your cells, you have got these machines and they are looking for things to build. They are looking for instructions. What should I build next?
And normally those instructions would come from your DNA. But now you got this virus instruction manual floating around. And one of these machines is just going to bump into these instructions and start reading those instructions.
And at that point, the machines inside your cell start to build copies of the virus. So your cell fills up with copies of the virus. The cell explodes and they start to emerge from your cell.
And now they're floating around in your airways. And now you start to cough. And you'll start spreading the virus through air for the next person to breathe in. So there you go. That's how viruses work.
If your kids are interested to know more about this topic, then you can go through the original writer of this lesson,
Steve Mould. The link is in the description.
मेरे पास तुम ना आना अच्छा है